folks, and welcome to this week's show. My special guest is Ursula.
Hello.
And we're going to be focusing very quickly on the top 10 songs, not hits, but songs of Genesis. And it's encapsulating both eras, the Collins and the Gabriel era. We don't bother with the Wilson era. I don't think anybody else does either. So we're going to be focusing on the top 10 songs of Genesis. So just very briefly before we dive in, Ursula, when did you sort of get into Genesis?
Well, actually, they were one of the first bands I became aware of, because I grew up in this lovely old big house when I was growing up in the 70s, and like in one room, like I had an older sister who was listening to a lot of like Osmonds and ABBA records and things, and then in the other room I had my brothers who were into their rock music and their Roxy music and into like Bowie and things like that, and one day my oldest brother, he brought home like this record here, copy of this, A Trick of the Tail, and I was only about 6 or 7 at the time, but I was like quite mesmerized by all the sort of weird and wonderful characters on the front and the back of the sleeve. And then when you open the sleeve, there was all these like interesting songs about them, about the characters, and to a little child, you know, it was like a storybook in music, you know, a storybook set to music, and I was very intrigued by it all. And then I remember he had these great big speakers. He was into sort of building things, and he built these great big speakers, and he put it on, and the album just sort of blew you away. You know, I was just a child, and I was going, oh, what's this album? It just sounded so, you know, fantastic. And I remember this sort of dreamy music coming through, and it was Entangled. And I remember asking, oh, what's this lovely song, you know? And I was always sort of pestering him about it, you know, and it just sort of stayed with me. So like when I was growing up, I had this sort of, you know, eclectic taste. You know, I had like all these different genres from like my family playing all this different sort of music in the house. And anyway, my brother grew up and left home because he's like the eldest in the family. And he left home and he took his record collection with him, probably because he probably knew I'd be getting my hands on it, you know. So he took records with him, and then I just thought, oh, I need to get them myself, you know, I need to get these records. And I just remember every sort of Christmas and birthday I was asking for like a Genesis album or a Roxy Music album or whatever, and I was just sort of building up this collection because, you know, the songs were so good. And it's just the storytelling aspect, you know, I just love the storytelling, and all the brilliant atmospheres that, you know, Tony Banks and Steve Hackett and all their musical, you know, ideas just created such great atmospheres. As you know, just wasn't anything like it really. So so that's how I got into it.
Brilliant. I got into them probably really quite late. I think I was about 17, 18 when I had the record shop. And I was a big Bowie fan. I still am, obviously, and into Roxy and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, well, obviously I knew about Peter Gabriel and what sort of character he was. And I'd seen all the images, you know, when he'd shave his hair in the middle and stuff, you know, all that weird stuff, as well as all the makeup. And thought, I've got to give it a go. So I remember playing once in the shop. I played Foxtrot. And as soon as it came on with it, and, you know, obviously after the organ intro, I was thinking, oh, that's a bit different. And it, really got us immediately. Really got us. I couldn't understand why I didn't get into them beforehand. Maybe it's because I saw them as some sort of pop band in the 80s.
That's the trouble. A lot of people just, you know, they just hear the 80s hits, and they don't really know anything about the sort of 70s era. And it's, you know, it's surprising the number of people that do get into them quite late just because they don't know about them, you know.
Yeah. It's surprising the amount of people who don't know Peter Gabriel was in Genesis. You know?
That's right, I know, yes. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. So
So we're going to go through the top 10, and I think it'll be quite a varied list. And at the end, we'll talk about some of the near hits, as it were, as well, that would have made our list. So we're going to start with you first off, Ursula, and what's your number 10?
Okay, well, I was going to say primarily I was going to have a whole list of 70s songs in my top 10, but then I thought, well, that's a bit unfair because they did have the odd good song in the 80s and beyond, you know, things like Heat Haze and Duchess and Fading Lights. They did have the odd good song that I thought, oh, they're worthy of a place. But the one I went for was one that still captures all the drama and atmosphere that earlier songs, you know, always captured. And the one I went for in the end was Mama from the 80s, 1983. I just think it's a really sort of astounding single. I think it was their biggest hit single in the UK, which is quite unbelievable, because when you think of all the sort of ballads and, you know, the sort of more poppy songs they've had, I'm surprised Mama was their biggest hit, but I'm pleased it was, because it's such an interesting song. It starts with the drum machine pattern, which is strange in itself, because obviously Phil Collins is known for, you know, being one of the greatest sort of rock drummers and so versatile. So it's strange at the start with this drum machine, but they had sort of changed their style by then, so they were using a lot of drum machines in the 80s songs. But it's just this sort of you know, sort of mesmerizing sort of drum beat that starts, and then you've got Tony's eerie sort of keyboards that come across, and it's just a great song. It builds up with Phil's voice. He's, you know, he sings really well on it. It's one of his best vocals, I think, and then it just sort of you know, goes into that laugh. It's kind of quite spooky, quite eerie, and then there's the wonderful sort of chord sort of keyboard progression that it builds into. It's just a song of, you know, it's got so much in it. It's so astounding. And I just think out of all the 80s songs they did, that one is, you know, worthy of a place in the top 10. So that's why I've put it at number 10.
Excellent, great choice. Might appear on my list. My number 10 is a Phil song. It's Turn It On Again, which I just love, just because it's a little bit weird. I love it's a Mike Rutherford riff and Tony Banks sort of keyboard thing that he'd already had, and it was going to be really slow, and apparently just Phil Collins just sped it up, you know, literally played the drums and sped it up. It was a number 8 UK hit. It was a flop in America, which was a surprise. And it's about a man who's obviously obsessed with the TV, and it sort of summarizes his sort of inadequacies in life. He's sort of obsessed with the telly, and they're like these characters like his friends, which is a bit odd. Also has references to, has the line "she's not there," which indicates that sense of loneliness and that lack of love. And there's that little sort of melancholy that sort of makes it for me. Also, what I really like about it, it's impossible to dance to. Because it's got a new
time signature, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's got a really unusual signature, and very famously, when they reformed in '82, Peter Gabriel was going to play the, you know, that lone drum that he used to have, and he couldn't keep the rhythm on it. He couldn't understand it because the rhythm constantly changes. Collins says, for example, you can dance to it. You can see people trying to dance it every now and again. Sorry, you can't dance to it. People try and dance to it, but they just go out of time. They don't know why. You can see why, because of the time signature changes all the time. But great song, really, really catchy. You know, it's just a nice, catchy song, but it's just a great hook. I absolutely love it. It's a really great pop song, which is what it does. Just does it really, really well. So that's my number 10. So what have you got at number 9?
Right, number 9, I've got the song from the album of the same title, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I think it's such a wonderful album that I could have picked like any one of the songs from it to put in my top 10, but The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway itself, the first single, is such a brilliant introduction. It's got that wonderful piano intro from Tony Banks, which I think is a great piano intro, and it just brings you straight into the song. And then it's got the sort of you know, the build up with sort of Peter singing, and then the guitars coming in, the keyboards. It's just a great, powerful tune to bring you into such a wonderful album that it comes from. And I think the piano intro, I think it's one of the best intros out of any Genesis album. I mean, they go on about the piano intro in Firth of Fifth, but I think, you know, the one on Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is even better than that one still. But it's just a great song, a great introduction into the album itself, and that's why I've put it at number 9.
Oh, it's a great song. It is a fabulous choice. It was on my list of possibilities. My number 9 was still in the Phil territory at the minute. And I've got my mama.
Right.
As you say, it was their biggest hit. Again, I think it was a flop in America.
Oh, right.
Yeah, a song about falling in love with a sex worker. It's really quite, again, quite sinister.
It is, yeah.
Based upon a groove created by Mike Rutherford, as you see about the keyboards. It's
Yeah.
got the famous Collins laugh, based on
Mhm.
which is a homage to Grandmaster Flash's The Message.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just a fabulous song, really, really well put together, really well constructed. You've said everything that there's to say about it before there. It's just a great, great tune. I just love it. And also, it's quite long as well. There's the longer version as well, which really adds to that sense of sinister aspect to it. The keyboards really does add to that sort of sinister feel.
Yeah, in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, really
Mhm.
lovely groove, really, really
Mhm.
nice. So that's my number 9. What have you got at number 8?
Number 8, I've got quite an early one, Get 'Em Out by Friday, which was on Foxtrot. It's quite a bizarre story, but it's very relevant today as it was then, about landlords trying to sort of evict their tenants and get the most out of their tenants. It's quite sinister as well, but it's brought alive by Peter's lyrics. He sort of plays the parts of different characters in the song, and it really brings it alive. And I hadn't heard it for quite a while, until about a year or two ago. I played it again a couple of years back, and I didn't realize just how great all the instruments were. You know, it just comes in with a crash with the keyboards and the great bass guitar. It's just the whole song. It's a real sort of, uplifting, like, it's a really good track to listen to. I didn't realize at the time how good it was until I played it much later on. And like I said, quirky, sort of bizarre lyrics. And I just think it's a great tune, great song. So that's my number 8.
It is a great song, and it's really, really dark, isn't it? You know, the lyrics, because you got the references to genetic growth as well, and making people smaller so they can fit into more houses, more people into a house.
That's what I think. It's quite sinister, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, really, really great. It gets a mention, folks, on the 1972 show, so feel free to watch that. But that song specifically, really great choice. Love it. Really great song. My number 8's Blood on the Rooftops.
Oh, that's lovely.
Lovely song, song about ignoring the realities of the real world. And that's, again, that references to fantasy TV. And, the TV characters, Errol Flynn is Robin Hood, or you got Batman and Tarzan referenced. And trying to avoid the realities of life, like the troubles between the Jews and the Arabs, as they say. I love the little reference to Lindisfarne, their former stablemates, where they've got the line, the grime on the tyne is mine, all mine. And if people lived in the 70s in Newcastle, it was grimy. It was not pleasant. We lived in quite a rough area in the early 70s before we moved, and it was rough. It was real. Grime really summarizes the time. So they nailed that really, really well. Not like the beautiful city it is now, may I add, folks, so feel free to come up and visit. But it's I also got the line about when we got bored, we had a world war, happy but poor. Again, it's that sort of, the song's almost like it's having a dig at that romantic element of war, where people romanticize things. It's basically saying, please don't, and it's, it's a fabulous song, really, really, really good song. So yeah, that's my number 8, Blood on the Rooftops. Excellent song, Wyndham Withering's album track. So what have you got at number 7?
Number 7, I've got another very early one, and this time it's Musical Box from that album there, from Nursery Crime. Again, it's another quirky, bizarre kind of story about these two Victorian children, and one ends up beheading the other. It's quite bizarre. If you haven't sort of heard the story, you'll think, what am I going on about? But if you hear the song and you hear the story, it all fits in with the vibe. It's got a sort of strange, sort of eerie atmosphere, and it's got this lovely 12-string guitar at the beginning. I think Anthony Phillips, who used to be in the band before that, I think he might have had a part in writing that. So it starts with this lovely 12-string guitar, and then it just builds, because Steve and Phil had just joined the band, and in this sort of, you can tell they sort of bring in the sort of strength of the power to the song, you know, so it builds up. But the best part of the song is a bit at the end when Peter's sort of singing, and it's just a real sort of, you know, ultimate sort of climax to the song at the end, where he's sort of singing is the child at the end, the child that has sort of grown up into an adult in sort of spirit form. It probably sounds like it doesn't make much sense unless you sort of know what I'm talking about. But it's just a lovely, quirky, bizarre kind of song, and it's one of the best still. I think it's one of the earliest, but it's still one of the best. So that's my number 7.
Yeah, it is a masterpiece, may I add. My number 7 is From the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and it's In the Cage. It's got loads of interpretations you could have for this song. I'm not going to go too much into it. You know, it's got, you know, it could be about a drug trip. I read somewhere like orange in my stomach could refer to orange sunshine acid tabs in the 70s. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. It's got links to obviously Rael being trapped in a cave where he gets enclosed by stalagmites and stalactites. But I love the whole build up to it, you know, with the bass and the keys, and it's got that heartbeat sort of feel there, and it's that real claustrophobic sound to it, mirroring the sense of doom in terms of what's happening to the character. And then it builds up, and Gabriel's voice really reeling off the lyrics really fast, and it creates that tension. Oh, it's just brilliant. It's really one of my big favorites of theirs. I'm not going to speak too much about it because I don't like it sometimes when you analyze the song too much, because it takes away some of the, you know, the fantasy elements away from it when you look at other people's interpretations, because it's your interpretation that counts. And for me, it's that. That's my number 7, In the Cage, classic. So what we got number 6?
Well, I was going to say, before I say my number 6, I totally agree about Peter's lyrics on the lamb. I think that they're so sort of genius. They can be interpreted in different ways. So I totally agree with that. And I think that's what sort of adds to the sort of mystery to the album. It really sort of elevates it with his style of lyrics. But my number 6, I've got Dance on a Volcano from this album. I think it's technically and musically probably one of the most complex tracks, because like you were saying earlier on about the quirky time signatures, this is full of stops and starts and strange time signatures. And I think it's just a brilliant opening track to an album. I think those first few bars with the guitars coming in, the guitars are quite eerie, and then it sort of crashes in with the bass and the drums, and it's just a brilliant opener to an album. And I think they did the right thing, because this is the first album where Peter wasn't on it and Phil was singing, and I think they did the right thing to put that as the starting track, because they needed to prove, not to us the fans, but they needed to prove to like the critics and the music critics that they could continue, because like we all know, you know, the musical talent from like Tony Banks and Steve Hackett and Mike Rutherford, etc. But the critics out there probably just saw them as Peter Gabriel plus band, and I think this song really proves to anyone who hadn't heard them up to that point that they can write a really, really good song, and it just shows the musicianship as well, how brilliant they were at creating different sounds, different atmospheres. So I just think it's a really, really good song, great start to an album, and that's my number 6.
Yeah, it's a great choice. It is off a great album, may I add as well. As I say, a first album without Gabriel, it's tremendous, and that'll no doubt get mentioned in a bit of depth when we do the album show. My number 6 is Watcher of the Skies, or Foxtrot. It's a great opening track. I just absolutely love it, which I sort of inferred before. You know, the minute the mellotron comes on and you got that staccato beat, it just hooks us, it just grabs you straight away. And again, that unusual time signature. It was written by Rutherford and Banks during a tour in Italy. They'd been staring over the landscape over a hotel in Naples, and they were imagining what it would be like if an alien came down to the planet and see what was there, which I thought was quite clever. They were massively, they were massively influenced by. Is it Stanley Clarke? Is that right? The Childhood's End.
science fiction.
Yes, aye.
Yeah.
And I might have forgot his name there. About
No.
mankind evolving to leave the earth. I always get that reference to the Watchmen as well as in the sci-fi text, which is great in the TV series. Magic if you get a chance to watch it. So it's got that really otherworldly feel to it, even from the beginning. I've got a friend who went to see them on the Lamb tour, and he gave me the program when I had the shop many years ago. He came in, he knew I just got into them, and he brought the program in and gave us it, which was very kind of him. And he said they did literally the whole album live. And then they did two songs, and Watch Over the Skies was one of them, is one of the encore songs. And Gabriel came on with his eyes done and the bat wings and stuff. It just hooks you. It's just a great song. It's got that otherworldly feel. It's just fabulous. It's a brilliant album opener.
Yeah, those first few chords, they really set the vibe of the song, don't they? The first few chords on it. So
it was higher on my list, so it's just dropped down a little bit just to try and appease a little bits of other things. But there you have it. So what have you got in number 5?
Well, number 5, I've got In the Cage, what you had earlier. And I put that there because, like I said, there's any number of songs on that album I could have put in the top 10. But I think In the Cage really sort of highlights the album. It's the sort of defining moment of it. And like you say, it's a great sort of tense sort of start to the song. You hear that sort of drum beat, like a heartbeat really, and it's sort of building tension right from the first few seconds, and then you get that sort of desperation in Peter's voice. Then it goes on to that wonderful instrumental break that Tony does. I mean, he's so good on the keyboards. He's very underrated, I think, as a keyboard player, but he's some of his keyboard parts are fantastic. And I think just from start to finish, it's a great song. It really highlights the album. It's really, they play it, even, well, they didn't play it on the last tour, but recently they have been playing it on all the live shows, and it's just a great song, and it's my number 5.
Yeah, well, just a super choice, isn't it, my number 5 is That's All, from the eponymous Genesis album, isn't it? It was a massive hit actually in America, whereas Mama was a flop, which is just surprises me actually when I think about it. It's just simply a fantastic pop song, really catchy though. The keyboards are brilliant on it. It's the keys that grab you on this one. And then Phil Collins said he did his best Ringo impersonation on the drums just to try and give it a little groove. He does a great job on it. It's all about relationship, about being in trouble in a relationship, but the man not wanting to leave the woman and wanting to sort of to carry on, desperate for it to succeed. So it's quite romantic as well. It's got a lovely little it to it as well. But it simply is just a great pop song. No more, no less. Just super. So yeah, that's my choice. That's All. Great song. Massively underrated and often forgotten about when people talk about Genesis. It never gets mentioned as a great song. So
they did a nice live version of it on the last tour. They did a nice,
I saw it. Yeah,
acoustic version.
Yeah, was. So what have you got in at number 4?
Okay, number 4, I picked something from Wind and Wuthering. I could have had 2 or 3 songs from Wind and Wuthering because they're all equally as brilliant as each other. But the one I decided to go for was Afterglow, because I just find it's the ultimate power ballad. I just think it's the power ballad that blows any other power ballads out of the water, really. It's just such a, brilliantly emotional song, written by Tony Banks, of course, because he writes, the main bulk of the writing, and it was just a beautifully crafted song. And I think he said it took him about the time that it takes to write the actual song itself, which would be about 5 minutes. And it's just astounding to think that someone could come up with something that's so brilliant in just such a short space of time. I mean, it would take me 5 days or 5 weeks to come up with something half as good, never mind something as brilliant as that. And it's just a great live song too. It stands up, it gives you hairs on the back of your neck, and it really sort of it's chilling to sort of hear live, and it's just a superb sort of power ballad, and like I said, I could have picked 2 or 3 from that album, but I thought I'd go for that one just because it is a sort of an outstanding track. So that's my number 4.
Right, well, my number 4, any of these could be number 1 really at this point. Right, so I've gone with Chamber of 32 Doors.
Oh.
Which I absolutely love. And again, I'm not going too much at the story, but it is mentioned on the album sleeve here from the liner notes. At the top of the stairs, he finds a chamber. It's almost a hemisphere with a great many doors all the way around its circumference. It's a large crowd huddled in various groups, and from the shouting, Rael learns that there are 32 doors, but only one leads out. The voices get louder and louder until Rael screams, "Shut up!" There's a momentary silence, and then Rael finds himself the focus as they direct their advice and commands to the newfound recruit. Bread on trash, fed on ash, the jigsaw master has gone to move faster. And I just think that's really, really clever. Like it a lot. It's obviously telling a story there, but it's the lyrics and the song still let you picture your own image in terms of what's going on. I think what I love most about this, and probably most about Peter Gabriel himself as well, is that vulnerability within his voice. There are very few singers who move me more than Peter Gabriel, to be perfectly honest. And it's I love the line, "I need someone to believe in, someone to trust." It's just so beautiful and so poignant. It really is. It reminds me often as well of the opening line of "Looking for Someone."
Yeah.
And it's got that yearning and sort of desire to find something, and it's got that same sort of theme within this song, because that was another song that was almost on the list for me.
Yeah.
And I just love that sort of that yearning within Gabriel's voice. He's got a soulful voice, but a one of yearning as well. And this song captures it perfectly. And the band are absolutely amazing on this as well. They really are absolutely top draw at this point. What a band! What a great song for me. So yeah, that's my number 4. The Chamber of 32 Doors. It's weird, it's odd, but it's just great. So the big 3, what have you got at number 3?
Right, well, this one might surprise you because I've gone for The Lady Lies on, and then there were 3. I think The Lady Lies is a really underrated Genesis song. It's rarely talked about and it's rarely played, but I think it's definitely one of the best 3-man era Genesis tracks. It's probably the last greatest 3-man era track, if I'm totally honest. It's written by Tony Banks, of course, because he can turn his hand to anything, and it's just got that great sort of storytelling feel about it, about going to rescue the damsel in distress, and it's got a bit of a like Hansel and Gretel feel to it. But I just not just the story, it's just the song that there's only 3 of them playing the instruments at this stage, and the power behind the song, it's just tremendous. The build up to the chorus, and then the chorus itself, and then that outro at the end, the outro when they're playing the keyboards, the bass is excellent with Mike Rutherford, and it's just a really, really powerful song. And like I say, I think it's definitely the last great sort of 3-man Genesis track they did. In fact, I remember listening when like my brother brought the album home back in the late 70s. I remember listening to it, and then Follow You, Follow Me comes onto it next, and I was thinking, oh, like what's happened to all the like sort of quirky stories, because it went on like love song, at the end, and I just thought,
some of the bands appeared.
I know, yeah, that was the start of the sort of change there, I think. But like I say, it's a great underrated track. It's rarely heard of, rarely played, and I just think it's definitely one of their best songs. It's great, and I've put it at number 3.
Yeah, I have to say it's probably their album that I listen to the least. So I'll give that another blast, if I'm being honest. I'm listening to it years.
Yeah,
yeah, I will do. Right, my number 3 is The First of Fifth.
Oh yeah.
You mentioned the piano intro. I love it. It's just superb, and I love it. What live? I mean, I go and watch the Steve Hackett gigs every year when he comes up to Newcastle on Gateshead Stage, and it's great. He's got all that big build up, and the guy's got on vocals is great actually, and the band are sublime. But it's just brilliant, beautiful big build up. He does it at every gig. This is the one song that's always in.
Mm.
And then you know you got the flute and the beautiful textures within the song. Genesis are a massively lovely textured band. Again, people
Yeah,
forget about that.
great atmospheres.
Oh,
Yeah.
very atmospheric. And
Mhm.
then at the end, you've got this cough. You've then got Hackett's great guitar solo at the end, which sort of again takes the song to another level.
Mm.
The lyrics, I know he slaughters the lyrics a little bit. Banks, he says, "Oh, he wrote most of the lyrics. It's about a journey of a river." But actually, I think it works really, really well. So
Yeah.
I think he's doing himself down a little bit. And I love the song when it
Yeah.
builds up and everyone suddenly comes in and claps towards the end of the build up.
Mhm.
It's just brilliant. It's a really great live track, but also obviously a
Mhm.
great track on a great album, Selling England by the Pound. So
Mhm.
yeah, fourth or fifth, that's my number 3. What have you got in number 2?
Well, number 2 is the song that I first heard all those years ago, and I think it's still as good today as it was back in the 70s, and that's Entangled. And I think it's just a wonderfully beautiful, dreamy song. It was, it starts with Steve's lovely acoustic guitar, and it's got a kind of eeriness to it, an eerie atmosphere, but it's just a beautiful song. And then it builds to the chorus where they're sort of singing sort of a harmony in the chorus, and it's quite folky. And then it goes back to Steve's lovely acoustic guitar again. And then the build-up of the song is the wonderful outro by Tony. Sort of has that sort of, it's quite a haunting sort of mellotron sort of melody, and you can hear the sort of vocal choir, and it just builds up at the end. It's a lovely, lovely song, and it's meant to be about, when you're sort of half in a coma and half coming out of it. It's got that dreamy aspect, and I can imagine it's the sort of thing, these people when they sort of pass to the next life and they see the light coming. I can imagine something like that playing in the background. It's got that sort of dreamy, sort of hospital-like quality to it, where you're sort of coming out of, coming round, and it's just beautiful, a beautiful song, and so I'll put that at number 2.
Great choice. Well, my number 2 is the 23-minute epic that is Supper's Ready. Again, It's got loads of interpretations. It could be anything, couldn't it? It's a piece which has got 7 musical segments to it. I love the variant time signatures on it. I love the flower reference. I love the line, Winston Churchill dressed in drag used to be a British flag, which is really funny. It's just superb. They just ended up apparently getting all these little pieces that they cobbled together, and they managed to sort of weave them into one epic piece of music. And there's loads of interpretations about it. He said, allegedly he wrote the lyrics about his ex-wife, in terms of being possessed by a spirit, which gave him the starting point for the battle between good and evil. And then you got the apocalypse at the end there, with the references to the revelations in the Bible, and the 666 and all the rest of it. Sorry for my cough, folks. The 9/8 rhythm as well, which is just mental. I don't think there's any song on this album that actually just plays in 4/4, but it's great. It's just it's an epic song. It's one of those songs that it seems to have almost gone out of vogue a little bit, because when I was a kid in the 70s and the 80s, you'd always see all those greatest song ever lists, and it would always be the same songs like Stairway to Heaven, Bohemian Rhapsody. And Supper's Ready was always one of them that would make it. It would also make the John Peel Festive 50.
Yes.
And it seems to have now just vanished. It never gets mentioned now as one of those songs. It's odd, because it is such a big, epic song. And I could see why people would pick this as number 1 of their songs quite easily, because it is just immense. And they often say that the bands and individuals that this is their culmination as that lineup in terms of a song. So yeah, Supper's Ready. Just, I'm not going to go too much into it. It's just brilliant. So that's my number 2. So Ursula, what have you got at number 1?
Well, I've got number one, what you had at number two, which is Supper's Ready. I think it could only ever be at number one because it's just such a masterpiece. And for Effort alone being 23 minutes long, it's just an outstanding piece of music. And like you say, it was built from sort of 6 or 7 different parts, which flow together really well, I think. And it was based on, like you say, some sort of supernatural experience that Peter experienced with his then wife Jill, and it's like a song about good versus evil. So it's a really sort of, you know, charismatic, sort of, you know, strange, quirky, just a great piece of music. And with it being 23 minutes, most people would think, you know, you'll get bored of it after 5 or 10 minutes, but you just don't, because, you know, each part sort of takes you through the journey of the song, and it starts with a lovely sort of guitar piece that I think Tony Banks came up with. Just shows that he's got many talents. You know, he came up with that lovely acoustic vibe at the start, and just everything about it. It's a real compelling listen. You know, it takes you through the journey, start to end. And it's just one of those songs that, you know, you've got to sit up and take notice of. And I still think people rate it quite highly because, you know, like you were saying, it gets into the top 10 sort of rock charts and things, you know, and when Tommy Vance was doing them on his rock show years ago, you know, it's always in the top 3. But I think it's still rated highly because, like, I was lucky enough to see them when they played their sort of closing show on at the O2 when they were doing their sort of last tour last year, and someone called out for it in the audience. Someone called out to Phil for Supper's Ready, so it's obviously still thought of fairly highly after all these years. So so it's still, you know, still in everyone's minds, and I think it's still the greatest piece. So that's my number one, Supper's Ready.
Great shout, great choice. I was saying as well, when I saw Peter Gabriel in Newcastle a number of years ago, and they shouted out for Supper's Ready, then and he just looked and laughed. And I saw him in in Berlin. In Berlin a number of years ago, which was a great concept, bizarre concept, where you're outside, we just literally walked to the front. It was weird.
Yeah.
And somebody shouted it there as well in German, and again he just smiled. So
you probably get a lot. You probably get a lot there, I would reckon.
Well, it's a top draw choice, and it's really hard for me to argue otherwise. I mean, I've actually gone with the musical box.
Oh, right.
And I just love it. I do. I love the dynamics of the song. I love the macabre aspect to the song. Mm-hmm. It's got a real King Crimson feel to it as well, and that's maybe because they bought the Mellotron off them, which they use on it at the beginning. It's placed. I'll a quick read here. It says it's placed in Victorian Britain. A young boy, Henry, is actually accidentally decapitated by his friend Cynthia while playing croquet, as you do. Returning to the house, Cynthia plays Henry's old musical box, which unleashes the spirit of Henry as an old man. Henry's become sexually frustrated and attempts to seduce Cynthia. The nurse enters the room, hurls the musical box at the wall, destroys both it and Henry, which is mad. It's Victorian, it's Gothic. It's got that real sort of Miss Havisham feel about it from Great Expectations in terms of the darkness, the claustrophobia. The lyrics are really sort of dark and funny. There's Gabriel as well. He used to wear that old man mask at the end, and he'd do the lines about like touch your flesh in a real old pervy sort of style.
Yeah, quite creepy.
Yeah, very creepy, which obviously it was a creepy old man mask, and it worked really well. And then the end of the song, we used to go fast right at the end. It literally was climactic as he would be sliding up and down on the microphone stands. So there was no hiding in terms of what he was doing or what he was thinking about. It was very, very funny. But I love the whole thing. This is, for me, is where the band have turned into a truly remarkable band because of the fact that they got Hackett and Collins in. And Gabriel said he wanted this song to sound at parts like The Who, and it achieves it. Collins, who's a massive Who fan, he's drumming just drums and pounds away at times, and he's flying around the kit. I mean, the odd little anecdote is in his book, and it's mentioned in, I think it's Townsend's book as well, it might be, where Collins offered to quit Genesis in '78 to become the new drummer. Yeah, which I was quite taken aback by at the time when I read it.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah,
I was quite surprised. He was such a big fan of theirs. He raves about them in his book. His book's great, by the way, if you get a chance to read Phil Collins.
I've read that. Yeah, his autobiography. Yeah,
excellent book. And so yeah, they've got that power of the Who. They've got that soft dynamics at times. You know, I love the musical box sound with the keys and the guitar. It's really beautiful. Loads of space, and then all of a sudden there's voila, you know. And as you see, that big climatic, powerful end. So that's my favorite. It's about 10 minutes long of just dynamism and that sheer power. It's just great. I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's my number one.
I was going to say, you described it better than I did, I think, about Henry and Cynthia. You did a better description than me. But yeah, it is. It's a worthy number one.
So there are choices, folks. We'd love to hear what yours are. Do you have any songs that sort of got close, just missed out maybe?
Yeah, I had a few from Wind and Wuthering. I think it's such a great album that there's so much atmosphere to it. I loved All in a Mouse's Night. I think that's a great song.
That's one of mine.
Yeah, 11th Earl of Marblood on the Rooftops. I mean, any of those could have been in my top 10. Carpet Crawlers as well. I think Carpet Crawlers is a great Lamb tune, and like you say, the lyrics, there's 2 or 3 different sort of meanings to that lyric. I think the lyrics are astounding on Carpet Crawlers. Back in the NYC, that's another great song. Just so many good I mean, especially the 70s output is just so classic. There's just such a lot. I mean, there's probably other things that I've forgotten off the top of my head, but there's just so many great songs that have you know, managed to write and create. And
I mean, I've got things like Flying a Windshield. I love Harold the Barrel.
Oh yeah, that's very quirky, isn't it?
Yeah, Dance of the Volcano. I've got Squonk. I've got later stuff. Even I've got. I love I Can't Dance, and I know it's controversial, but I really like it.
I like that one too.
Really bluesy.
Bad press. I don't know.
It's really bluesy. I actually quite like it, and I didn't used to like it. I absolutely used to hate Land of Confusion, and I actually quite like it now. It's one of them which divides fans.
Yeah, no, I'm not keen on that. I didn't like the video either.
Yeah, was that the Spin Image one?
Yes, but I wasn't keen on it.
But yeah, there's so many you could pick from, and the other one, sorry, that I had done originally as top as my number 10, and I just removed it right at the end. Is Twilight Alehouse.
Oh, right.
Which was a B-side, and it's really fun. Again, it's got all that power and that wildness to the band.
Yeah.
How that didn't end up on the album, I don't understand. It should have been on one of the albums.
And Stagnation as well, from the right from the beginning.
Yes.
It's a great track as well. I think it showed the potential of what they were to go on to become.
I mean, that's super. So there we have it, folks. We'd love to hear your lists, as we were saying before there. Please subscribe to the channel, and we shall see you next time round. Okay, thank you very much. Take care. Look after yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye.